Welcome to another profile in Cinemania. Tonight, we reach deep into the archival bowels of the chapter library to bring you a most dangerous text whose contents carry an exceptionally virulent strain of Cinemania. Herein is recorded a first-hand accounting of the life and times of one of the great vectors of modern Cinemania. Despite the claims of so-called academic experts, these scriptures of the Jersey Prophet are in no way apocryphal. I found them half buried in the ruins of the U.S. Route 1 flea market, covered in novelty gag toys and fake propaganda pamphlets of Kaiser Wilhelm II. So, it's totally real and accurate. But fear not, this broadcast is encoded with secret and esoteric counterchants.
Cure the spring stain!
So now, we begin the entirely sanitized recitation of the profile in Cinemania, Scriptures of the Jersey Prophet, Kevin Smith. Liquid courage, Willow. Lo, it was the year of the great Beatle breakup, 1970, that a child entered the world on the red banks of the new land of Jersey. Not the old one, mind. Kevin Patrick Smith was born to two parents. The early years of Smith's life are of little consequence, spent wrestling undomesticated boardwalk rats for their meat. He was trained in the honorable profession of rooftop stickball player. But he did see the long drudgery ahead and the toll it took upon his father, and he pondered a higher path. During a showing of Richard Linklater's Slacker, lightning struck the young prophet, and he thought, "Forsooth, could I also do this?" In that moment, the Virgin Marie appeared to him from out the screen with a vision of the future. She spake, "Go forth to Vancouver, wherein they have a film school." And he did. Kevin Smith's sojourns in the hinterlands of Canada lasted 4 months and 17 days. His unorthodox sermons and incomplete documentary assignments made the local townsfolk wroth, and he fled for his life back to the homeland. But all was not for naught. He returned with 2 apostles, Scott Mosier and Dave Klein. While ministering to the poor and bubonic at a local convenience store, he adopted his 3rd apostle, Jason Mewes. He sat with them on the floors of a Jersey bodega, and after the last of the burnt offerings were eaten, he shared with them the first law of Jersey Girl-Rilla filmmaking. Spend no money in the making of thine film, and at least some profits art thou assured. With his first students at his side, Kevin set out to perform his first miracle to the wonder of the people, to make a movie out of nothing. But miracles take money, and the apostles all turned out their pockets, and they had none. But Kevin had a plan. He raised an army of like-minded friends and hooligans full of indignance at the vile invasion of the blockbuster empire. They marched from rental store to rental store in the dark of night, robbing each in turn for just enough to produce the first wonder, turning blood money to the will of the heavens. But with the constabulary close upon their heels, they would film in the secret of night in a convenience store, with the shutters closed to hide them and to mask the absence of daylight. This restricted their honorable thievery greatly. They had money enough to film, but so little budget, they could not afford color.
That's not how it works.
Look, I'm reading the original text, okay? According to Rabbi Hillel, this means not that the film itself was black and white, but they were forced to sacrifice the color each night to appease the creditors. But Rabbi Eliezer says the color of film pales to shades of gray in the face of the vibrance of divine inspiration.
What the fuck does that even mean?
Well, if you ascribe to Rabbi Galilee, it means shut the fuck up with your stupid questions and let him keep reading the goddamn scripture. Jesus, where was I? Oh, okay. So this next part, this is an especially intense chapter in the life and times of Kevin Smith. Even with our scrupulous wards, some Cinemania may leak through, so be careful. But even in the lives of the great, we must study all aspects, even those less savory. Listeners of especially delicate sanity may wish to fast forward
2 minutes 56 seconds.
Until you hear,
Clerks was indeed a wonder to the people.
The prophet's first testament may have been completed, but not a single bird would carry it out across the lands to share amongst the people. Smith walked for 40 days and 40 nights, carrying clerks and a can upon his back. On the 41st day, he reached an island once called Mannahatta, whereupon he found a festival of international film in full swing. He bore the canister to a theater surrounded by angels and placed it at their feet. Seeing the prophet for his true destiny, they screened clerks. But none amongst the festival yet knew Smith's truth, and fewer attended the screening than made the film. That's 11 people for anyone counting. No more, no less. 11 was the number that made the film. The number of the people was 11, being the 11th number. Despondent that his message of chill latchkey nihilism might never reach the people, Smith wandered the streets of the city upon the island. Herein, he was approached by two brothers who declared themselves humble monks with a great interest in his teachings. But secretly, they were emperors in their own kingdom called Miramax, a wooded land where they ruled in crowns of holly. They offered to help the prophet to spread his wonders as he sought in exchange for a percentage. Such was their fraternal affections that he did agree to their bargain. It was only with the aid of the brother emperors of Miramax that Kevin Smith's work did reach the people, and from the foundations of their empire did he build his ministry. Though rumors littered the ground like popcorn upon the sticky carpeting of a movie house, it was not until many years later that the evil of these brothers was brought to light. A coven of righteous sorceresses revealed their true names, which, when spoke aloud, showed their hideous demon visages through the illusion of hideous, creepy uncle faces. Thus laid bare, the sorceresses bound the demons and stripped them of their power. Word of the demons' depredations reached Kevin Smith and turned his stomach with illness and racked his body with guilt. He made every attempt to break ties with his previous benefactors, but as the prophet himself admits in his teachings, not even the purest of intentions can go entirely untainted after the touch of fouled coin. Indeed, to this day, several of the humbled director's work remains in the possession of one of the demons, locked away with him, and all of Smith's efforts to free them from the demon's grasp have been rebuffed. But all of this would come much later, and in the first days of the prophet's rise, he remained blind to the brothers' predations. With their aid, Clerks was indeed a wonder to the people, for they had seen nothing like it before. It was in this time that Kevin Smith did one day enter into a 7-Eleven and pour upon the slushy every flavor that they had. And he drank it, and yet he lived. To the shocked faces around him, he did declare his second law of Jersey Girl-Rilla filmmaking. Even in indie films, dick and fart jokes sell. And wealth did rain down upon the film in a miracle that turned $25,000 of debt into over 3 million bagels. And the moneylenders nodded and thought, nearly 2,000% return on investment? Not bad at all. Thereafter, Kevin Smith climbed to the top of the Meadowlands Arena at dawn to proclaim Jersey Girl-Rilla filmmaking and its laws, and smote them upon the turnpike exit signs for all to witness. The people rejoiced at this, and the sun rose green upon the horizon that morning, casting its verdigris light upon the prophet and his works. The forces of evil saw the rise of Smith and the joy of his followers and quaked in their Bruno Maglis. They turned to the character assassins of 4 letters, who had great enmity in their hearts for the works of the prophet and all filmmakers. When this secret fraternity had stood against Clerks and attempted to brand it as most heretical, there arose a great wave from the Sea of Dershowitz, and it crashed with righteous might upon the assassin's lair and washed away their self-righteous ire. Now, they were only too happy to strike again at Smith's second wonder, Mallrats. In the ensuing battle, the walls of the grand flea market shook and fell, crushing many a merchant in the rubble. Though the prophet and his disciples followed the first law of low budget, the Merchants Guild demanded recompense for the destruction, and Mallrats' losses tarnished the prophet in the eyes of the emperors and their holly crowns. Fortunately, 2 pious knights had joined Smith's band of apostles in the making of Mallrats. Conceived in the back of a Volkswagen, the identical twins Damien and Affleck. Oh, shut up! The twin knights were raised in a little village of South Boston on a righteous diet of the prophet's first great wonder, and so inspired they set out on a great hunt for the legendary tiny golden man. The prophet of New Jersey heard tell of the good-willed brothers and did place his blessing upon them, and they returned successful from their hunt, dressed in accolades and gifted with sheep and goats. So anointed, the knights felt ready to stand by the great figure himself and help to spread his gospel, and his entourage did grow. It came to pass in the year of our graduation that a malady struck the Film Festival of Tokyo, and all the attendees therein were struck and mute. This evil was summoned forth by the tyrant Kim Jong-il, who was full of envy and longed to be recognized for his own cheap Godzilla knockoff films. But the prophet heard their silent cries, donned the cape and cowl of a hero once again, and set out to sea with his holy band aboard a tiny vessel named Amy to bring aid to this far-off land. Here, the first law of no budget did prove its truth, for Amy was powered by naught but a spinning wheel. Smith sat tirelessly day and night spinning a mere $250,000 worth of straw to speed the faithful crew. In this time, he did smell the first whiff of brimstone from the brother emperors of Miramax, as they tempted him with millions of ducats should he abandon his apostles for an army of famous actors. But he refused them all and spun all the faster in fervent loyalty, and after 8 days and 8 crazy nights, when they reached Tokyo, Smith had spun the $250,000 in straw to $12 million in gold. And the Emperor saw the 4,800% return on investment and could say no more to that. Also, the movie was pretty bitching. Probably one of his best ever.
Hey, no editorializing. You'll mess up the anti-Sania buffers.
But I'm just reading what's in the scriptures, man. I'm more partial to Zack and Miri make a porno anyways. Now, can I get back to it, please? Jesus. Where was I? Okay, here we go. When he arrived, the prophet Smith held his arms aloft, and the people were cured. One silent fellow named Bob spoke more words than he had ever spoke in his entire life prior. So, having spread peace and harmony to all the kingdoms and all the rulers of the world, it was time at last for the prophet to face the greatest villain yet: Western civilization. But before I continue, perhaps you're asking yourself, why in the world would there be a whole secret testament of the life and times of Kevin Smith, and why would I care? It's not like it's hard to learn about the man. I could turn to any number of his interviews, YouTube, posted convention panels, his weekly smodcast, or any of the several recorded evenings with Kevin Smith. The man's not shy. He's not a mystery. That's kind of his charm. He just lets it all hang out in a strange blend of egotism and honesty. Ah, but is he? According to the scriptures, that may not even be Kevin Smith. For in the final year before the great millennial apocalypse, arose a false prophet to trick the populace with shit demons and Selma Hayek. This creature, Kevin Smythe, attacked all that was good and righteous in the world in a perversion of the first 2 laws of Jersey Girl-Rilla filmmaking, that if thou shalt in following the first and second commandments be given a budget of millions and spend but a pittance, then it must be thou shalt spend the rest on hookers and blow. Thus spake the false prophet. And so, Kevin Smith raised up an army of his own, especially from the ranks of the Catholic League, and did lead many a protest against this horrific caricature of his great works. He shielded his followers from the most corruptive influences and dogma and gave them words to speak, and in this fashion they might protest the film without needing to even see it or understand what it might contain, for to do so might lead to damnation. He appeared before the great hosts of Eatontown to make his case, and drew to his cause more apostles: George, Alan, Alanis, and Janine. He also did an apostle exchange program with Jesus, for that dude's 13th to join them for a summer internship. The battles of false and true shook the heavens and the seas, and the people did tremble that their world might end as death rode forth upon a blue screen. Fearing that winning the war might lose the whole world, the true prophet did strike out into the wilderness, and peace and serenity returned to the land, and the dial tones of the internet buzzed still, and not one bank account crashed on January the 1st, for it was only a comedy after all. There in the desert, Kevin Smith did birth a wholly new Viewisk universe, wherein his followers and all the good people could live safe from the depredations of the false Kevin Smythe. While their filmographies dueled, civilization continued unabated, For every new, wondrous sequel or spin-off from Smith, Smythe responded with a cop-out. And the true prophet set upon his followers a test when he did enter into the wastelands of the horror genre. Could they perceive goodness, even in a movie about a man surgically transformed into a walrus? In the meantime, the apostles of Jersey Girl-Rilla filmmaking created a secret stash of all the prophet's reliquaries and wisdom to await his return. Someday, they whispered, the demon brothers of Miramax would perish and return to their hellish homes, and on that day, the rights to the prophet's greatest works will return to him, and he shall reveal their true glory, complete with the Fat Albert scene. This has been another Profiles in Cinemania.
This episode was written by Daniel Scribner and was performed by Daniel Scribner and Ethan Ireland. Library music courtesy of Epidemic Sound. Profiles in Cinemania is a product of the Cinemania Society, LLC.